My job is to talk about what makes a great interview. That sounds a little pretentious. I'd rather talk about what makes a good interview and maybe occasionally what makes a great interview. I do a 30-minute conversational program, and the way it's structured is designed to make a good interview. For me, an interview is a 30-minute relationship. That's essential. I don't do telephone interviews because I can't establish a relationship with a person on a telephone. It's essential for me to be able to look at the person look at me, look them in the eye, and in that human basic process, something changes. People forget they're being interviewed. They're in a conversation with another human being. Basic principles. When I was asked the question, I thought this is a very interesting question to think about because you just do interviews without a lot of thinking often. And so I've made some notes. First, respect. Respect for the guest, the audience, and the interviewer. And that respect is conveyed in that personal interface, that personal space. It's I think, a primal human response. How you look at the person when you're talking with them, your tone of voice, and serious interest in the guest's story, perspective, experience, whether or not you agree with it philosophically. People pick up on that, and they respond to it. And the greatest compliment I can get at the end of a show is, I didn't expect to say that. That means you've gotten them to open up. Responsibility, no BS. The world is full of it if you watch mass media. That's not what our show is about. That requires integrity in the questions and probing questions. Many of us, for various reasons, don't stop to think about why we do what we do, let's say. We devote our life's work, and I see people in the audience here who I know. You devote your life to something. Why? Answer might be, it's been of interest to me. It interests me. That's not an answer. Why does it interest you? And the why question tends to help people take a look. Insight. Everybody has opinions. Although the audience has opinions, the primary purpose of our show is to get you to question some of your opinions, or at least hear somebody else's opinions, a perspective you might not have thought of. We live in a world of specialization. We tend to talk to people who think like we do. Our program is aimed at getting you to listen to people that you don't talk to regularly. Ground rules. We have unusual ground rules. We use this tape recorder. A guest can pause to consider an answer. If you misstate an answer, tell me right then, because we don't cut and paste edit. We air the conversation we have. That answer came out wrong, we'll use your second answer. You don't have to answer a question. If that happens too often, we don't have a show. That's not the end of the world. At the end of the program, I ask, are you comfortable with our conversation? This is what's going to be aired, the conversation we've just had. If you say no, or I say it didn't work, we don't air it. Now, that's not true if you're running for public office or hold high office. Those are different rules, and we're having increasing difficulty over time getting politicians on the air. I wrote down guts. That's too strong a word, but I guess willingness to follow up. I once had a United States Senator on the radio and asked a simple but important question. He evaded it. I asked it again. He evaded it. I said, Senator, we have a half an hour. I will keep asking this question until I get an answer. He answered the question. Human interests. The guest is a person. I almost always begin a show, even a 3-person show, with, where'd you grow up, what'd your folks do? I do that for a reason. I want that person to tell their story, because for the listener, you're talking to a prisoner, you're talking to a law enforcement officer, you're talking to a lawyer, you're talking to a bureaucrat, a teacher, whatever. We tend to categorize people by labels. The purpose of that section of the show, 2 or 3 minutes, is to have the audience hear something of the human story, something of that individual that clicks and changes the listener's perspective to, I'm listening to this other human being. Tenacity is, again, a modified version of the follow-up. If I watch mass media because these interviews are so short, 3 to 5 minutes, or because people are lazy, they don't follow up with probing, serious questions that open up new perspectives. Social relevance, I try to pick subjects that combine a human interest, a story of human interest, with something of meaning to our community, something that enhances our understanding of where we are, where we're going, what our choices are. That's a choice. Time, we're going to do an interview here with a very interesting young man. We have 9 minutes to do the interview. I've never done a 9-minute interview, and I make no guarantees. It takes time, and you get used to a rhythm of that process of opening up the guest. We'll see how it goes. Okay, very quickly. Outstanding shows. Bud Moore, we've done about 1,000 shows. Bud Moore was 87, grew up as a wilderness trapper as a kid, served in World War II as a Marine. The story was openness to learning. He made a lot of mistakes. He sprayed the landscape as a Forest Service official that he loved. He acknowledged his mistakes, but didn't feel shameful about it. He was an honorable man. Mike Mansfield, the last interview of his life, I believe, that was a show about distilled wisdom. Zero political BS. It's worth hearing. You can hear it on our website, homegroundradio.org, and you'll notice a difference between present and past. Clayton Kirk was a homeschooled kid. It was about homeschooling. A ranch kid, grew up down in the Boulder. He went to college. I said, what'd you learn you didn't know? He said, we all have filters. And the filter of his life was his religious upbringing. He found that we all see the same thing in different ways, and you have to understand that other people see the same thing with full honor and integrity differently than you, and that opens up a discussion. Sandra Day O'Connor, very sophisticated common sense coming from a ranch. A legal question got nowhere with her. My job was to open her up. Who is this woman? She's been on the court, she's off the court. I asked her about growing up on a ranch. It was like a flower opening up. Deborah Magpie Earling, The Power of Fine Writing. Tolstoy has a phrase that's pretty close to look carefully, choose the right word, tell the complete truth. When you see it, and when I read a novel of hers, it was just like hitting you in the face. A Red Army nurse, age 21, went through the whole war against the Nazis, walking 1,500 miles. I interviewed her when she was 90. It was a story of courage, deep, deep courage and willpower. Montana Supreme Court candidate, superficiality exposed. I interview Supreme Court justices with care.